welcome to another video. It is that time of the week again. It is Premier League predictions time. Another round of Premier League fixtures is almost upon us in this upcoming weekend of football. We are edging ever closer to obviously that World Cup break, so the league is really starting to take shape and continues to do so as we head towards that World Cup break coming up around about November, December time. But of course, there's a lot of footballs to be played between now and then, and this is yet another round of Premier League fixtures that is upon us, and there are some big games that will affect the entirety of the Premier League table. And this is obviously the place where I look into all the games and obviously predict the outcomes. But before we get into all of that, I would like to remind you to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get into the predictions. We're going to start with one of the 3 o'clock games that's going to take place on Saturday. It is Bournemouth against Tottenham. Big game for both teams, this one, as both sides are coming into this game off the back of defeats. Bournemouth lost 2-0 to West Ham on Monday night in what was slightly controversial circumstances, whilst Tottenham lost 2-1 to Newcastle on Sunday, their first home defeat of the season. Big game. Obviously a big game. For Tottenham, they need to get back to winning ways to kind of get a stronger grip of obviously their top 4 stance right now. Whilst for Bournemouth, of course, they just need to get some points on the board to try and survive what would be a relegation battle that many people believe they're going to be involved in this season. Could be an intriguing game. Bournemouth at home could be difficult for Tottenham. Obviously, it's a bit of a banana skin. You would expect Tottenham to go on and win, especially with the match winners that they have. But of course, football doesn't tend to work out that way. And let's face it, this is Tottenham. So the threat of a banana skin is more apparent, shall we say, than a lot of other clubs in this league. However, in saying that, I do believe that Tottenham will have more firepower than Bournemouth, and that may just tip the scales in their favour in this game, which is why I'm going to say that Tottenham come out on top on this one, and I'm going to say that Antonio Conte's side win this game by 2 goals to 1. Next up, another big game in the 3 o'clockers on Saturday. It is Brentford taking on Wolves. Both sides come into this game off the back of 4-0 defeats in their previous games. Brentford lost rather surprisingly to Aston Villa, whilst Wolves lost that Midlands clash to Leicester. Let's say big game. Both sides need to get back to winning ways here. My thoughts on this are simply that Wolves don't score many goals. They are the lowest goal scorers in the Premier League, and they're coming up against a Brentford side who are very, very strong at home. Now, whilst football is never a foregone conclusion, whilst Wolves should not be ruled out entirely, and especially not from at least getting a point from this game perhaps, my instant opinion is that Brentford play very well at home. They play some nice football. They're very good on the front foot, and they can also counter-attack as well. So depending on what kind of Wolves side they're going to be facing, I think Wolves will have enough to get the 3 points in this game, which is why I'm going to go for a 3-1 Brentford win. Our next game is very intriguing from a narrative perspective. It is Brighton at home at the Amex Stadium against Chelsea. Graham Potter's instant return to, or near enough instant return, to face his former club, of course, since leaving for Chelsea a few weeks ago. Big game in prospect here. Brighton, of course, come into this game off the back of a 3-1 defeat to Manchester City last week, whilst Chelsea, of course, drew 1-1 with Manchester United. Big game. Brighton have not won a game since Graham Potter last took over. It will be a bit of poetry and a bit ironic if they are to pick up their first win under their new manager against obviously their former manager, whilst Graham Potter, of course, will want to continue his progression at Chelsea. They picked up a very good win in midweek in Champions League action, so that will obviously give them a bit of a boost, but also could fatigue come into play, could anything like that come into play, obviously having played a game extra than Brighton. A lot of things to consider in this one, obviously a lot of intrigue, and a lot, obviously, like I say, from a story writer's perspective, because of obviously the narrative of Graham Potter returning to his former club. So this could make for a very intriguing game between two sides that are going to get the ball down and play some nice football at times. Brighton's problem in recent weeks has been they haven't been hitting the back of the net often enough. Chelsea, on the other hand, Graham Potter's still feeling out what's his best squad, what's his best 11, who plays where, and all that kind of stuff. That's only natural from just walking into a new club. So, very intriguing game on our hands, this one. But I'm going to have to go for the more informed team and say that Chelsea come out of this one as winners. Graham Potter gets a win over his former side, and that the Blues come out of this as 2-1 winners. So we're at Selhurst Park for Crystal Palace taking on Southampton. Big game and prospect this one, because obviously Crystal Palace and Southampton are looking to get back to winning ways in this game. Palace did lose their last game though to Everton, and what was a bit of a poor performance from them. The Toffees came out as 2-0 winners last weekend, while Southampton of course managed to pick up a bit of a surprising point against Arsenal to kind of take points off of the Gunners, and not many teams can say that this season. In fact, only one other team can say that they have done that this season. Big game in prospect. Obviously, it's big for Southampton because they need to kind of build on performances like that. I keep saying it about Southampton that they often get points in games that you don't expect them to really get points in, and then they drop points in those games that are against the teams that are in and around them. This could be another example of that. Palace at home kind of makes me think that should give them the edge. They have the atmosphere, they have obviously the squad and the talent and the ability to go in and get the 3 points here. And Patrick Vieira's side have been pretty good this season. Last week was a bit of a blip, I think, but last week was a very poor performance. But across the majority of this season so far, they've been very good, and they probably should have picked up more points than probably what they have. Against Southampton, like I say, a draw isn't out of the realms of possibility. Southampton don't tend to score that many goals, but I think being at home, having to come back from that defeat last week, I think Palace will get the job done, and that is why I'm going to go for a 2-1 Palace win. Next up, we've got St James's Park playing host to Newcastle against Aston Villa. Big game, this one up in Newcastle. Both teams actually come into this game off the back of victories. In their previous game, Newcastle beat Tottenham by 2-1, whilst Aston Villa kicked off the post-Steven Gerrard era in fine and perfect style with a 4-0 victory over Brentford. Where were those goals during the Steven Gerrard era? And obviously with Villa right now, they're of course looking forward to their new manager that's going to be taking charge in the coming weeks, in Unai Emery of course, so that's obviously something to look forward to, but that won't happen in this game. Going to be intriguing. It's going to be very intriguing to see what's going to be happening in this game. Obviously Newcastle come into this game in fine form. They've got a few decent players in there that are really hitting the peak of that are really hitting some very good form right now. The likes of Miguel Almiron, for example, who is in inspired goal-scoring form. Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, who I think is such a wonderful talent to watch. And obviously Callum Wilson's always been pretty strong. They've got a couple of other good players in there as well. Maybe a couple of others that are returning from injury and everything. That's going to be interesting to watch against the Villa side that I've always said had the team to kind of put that kind of performance that they did last week together, but for one reason or another never just quite showed it. Does post-Steven Gerrard mean that the shackles are off a little bit? Does that mean that this side's going to start working hard in these kinds of games? And this is a big game because this will show not only how far Newcastle have come, because it's one thing to beat a side that's been in the top 4 for a while, or top 6 for a while in Tottenham. It's another thing to go on and continue to build on that, and obviously that's what Newcastle need to do here. They can't afford to really drop points if they want to continue to show progression. But Villa won't be easy company, no doubt about it, which could make for a very intriguing game. When a side like Newcastle, who would like to get the ball down and play, and especially being at home, they'll want to be in the ascendancy on the front foot. Again, and a Villa side who are dangerous on the counter-attack, and they've got some pretty creative and flair-type players that may cause Newcastle some damage should they get into some good areas on the counter. Intriguing game. I think I'm just going to give the edge to the informed team though. Newcastle being at home, Newcastle being in form, Newcastle having some very good players right now that are in the form of their career. I think they will get the job done, and that is why I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory in favour of Eddie Howe's side. There's two games for our Saturday evening viewing. The first comes from Craven Cottage, where Fulham take on Everton, a historical Premier League clash this one, and obviously a game in which both sides come into this one off the back of victories. Fulham managed to beat Leeds by 3-2 last week, whilst Everton managed to beat Crystal Palace by 2-0. So both sides really looking to build off of those previous performances. We know about Fulham, we know that they're very direct, they're energetic, they are very physical, they hound, harass, they're going to be difficult to play against, and I think at Craven Cottage as well, having that home advantage might be big for this game against an Everton side who we know aren't the best away from home. They tend to struggle in games like this. Can they actually turn around their bad fortune away from home and maybe get another 3 points in this game? It could be massive for them in the grand scheme of things if they manage to turn this game, turn that kind of form around. It's going to be interesting, but I think that, like I say, with the tools that that Fulham have at their disposal and the way that they're using to their advantage this season, I reckon that Fulham come out of this game as winners, and that is why I'm going to go for a 2-1 Fulham win. The other game on Saturday evening is at Anfield. Anfield takes centre stage under the lights at Anfield for Saturday night's clash between Liverpool and Leeds. Yet another historic Premier League game, this one. Liverpool, of course, last time out in the Premier League, lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest. A rather surprising result there. One that I'm still not quite over, despite the fact that obviously Liverpool bounced back to winning ways midweek with a 3-0 victory over Ajax in Amsterdam. Leeds, on the other hand, haven't won in 8 games. Their last victory came against Chelsea very, very early on in the season. Now seems so far away, but their latest result was obviously that 3-2 defeat at the hands of Fulham. Now, I was confident last week. I was very confident in Liverpool beating Forest last week, and look how that turned out. At home, I'm still pretty confident, but this is the kind of banana skin that Liverpool have slipped up on multiple times this season. Leeds, like I say, haven't won in their previous 8 games. They've looked poor since then. They haven't been the same Leeds side that we saw be physical to Chelsea, beat Chelsea in all departments, and obviously get the 3 points on that day. Since then, they've lost plenty. They drew, I think they may have drew one, I think they lost plenty. This is the kind of game that is a banana skin for Liverpool, despite the fact they're at home. I'm very confident with them being at home, but at the same time, with the way that this season's gone for the Reds, it wouldn't surprise me if Leeds got something from this game. In saying that, I've got to go with Liverpool. I think with a couple of players back, big important players, the likes of Thiago and Darwin Núñez back, I think that, and obviously that win midweek will have obviously helped boost their confidence as well. Going away to Ajax, tough away grounds, an away side that obviously Liverpool have struggled to do this season, win away from home. I'm going to go with Liverpool to win. I'm going to say it's going to end up 3-1 to the Reds. Next up, we're moving on to Sunday's games, and we have the Emirates Stadium play host to yet another historical Premier League fixture. Arsenal against Nottingham Forest. Big game at the Emirates for these two. Arsenal will obviously want to maintain their stance at the top of the table in this one, following obviously last week's 1-1 draw, frustrating 1-1 draw with Southampton, whilst Forest picked up only their second victory of the season in a surprising manner when they beat Liverpool by a goal to nil. Big game. Obviously it's a massive game. Forest will want to build upon that performance last week. It was a fantastic performance by them, not taking anything away from them, obviously, since they beat my team. But at the same time, it was a great performance by Forest that they want to build on. Can they build on it? Was that just like a one-time flash in the pan kind of thing? Remains to be seen. They obviously face another difficult task here in Arsenal. Top of the table, flying high, going very well. They kind of slipped up a little bit against Southampton last week, but then again, most of the big teams tend to do so against Southampton, and especially Arsenal when it's away from home at St Mary's. I did say last week it would be difficult. I was proven right in that aspect, but I was also proven wrong in terms of my scoreline. That was going to be heavily in favour of Arsenal. I think the Gunners will bounce back though. I'm expecting an interesting game. I think Forest will set up exactly how they did last week. They'll sit in, they'll defend with their lives, and they'll try and spring a counter-attack. Arsenal are vulnerable to the counter-attack. They have a couple of weaknesses in their back four, mainly the likes of Gabriel, who has been clearly Arsenal's weak link in the back four this season. But in saying that, that means Forest have also got to try and keep out the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, Martin Odegaard, and so on and so forth, and obviously Granit Xhaka, who's been in inspired form this season. So it is going to be a difficult task for both sides in different aspects. In terms of a prediction, Arsenal to get back to winning ways. I think with the home crowd advantage is going to be big for them. I think with them wanting to get back to winning ways, wanting to maintain their top of the table status, I think Arsenal will get the job done, and that is why I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory in favour of Mikel Arteta's side. The penultimate game on this list sees us at Old Trafford. Manchester United play host to West Ham. Another intriguing historical Premier League clash if you are to go through the history of the Premier League in this one. Big game. United obviously coming to this one off the back of a 1-1 draw with Chelsea last weekend, whilst West Ham picked up all 3 points against Bournemouth on Monday night. Big game in prospect. United at home. United continuing to improve game by game, it seems. Going well so far. Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, as much as it pains me to say it, it seems to be going well so far for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. Yeah, they are facing a couple of problems in-house and everything, and the fan base still aren't completely on board, it seems, and mainly that is down to the Glazers and everything. But for right now, things on the pitch seem to be working out pretty well for Erik ten Hag and for Manchester United, so that's going well so far. West Ham, on the other hand, it's a return to Old Trafford for obviously David Moyes, who has seen his side be a bit hit and miss this season. They haven't been as consistent as what they have been in previous years at the moment. This could be a big game, though, in which they could spring a surprise here, because they kind of need to. They kind of need, if they want to maintain their consistency that they've been showing these past few years, springing a few surprises at a couple of the bigger clubs is definitely what they need to start doing, and this could be a big opportunity for them to do it and to get back to that kind of, like I say, consistency. In terms of a prediction, though, whether that happens or not remains to be seen. I don't necessarily think it will. I think Man United are playing very good right now. I still think there is a bit of a time bomb issue in terms of, I still think that maybe a couple of bad performances, a couple of bad results here and there might just swing the pendulum the other way a little bit in terms of the kind of feel-good factor that the players have got right now, and sort of the feel-good factor that some of the fans have got, or the majority of fans have got, when it comes to things on the pitch for United rather than off the pitch. Still got my reservations and doubts about that, but I think for right now things are going well, and I think they will take advantage of a West Ham side that have been rather hit and miss this season, and that is why I'm going to go for a 2-1 win in favour of Erik ten Hag's side. And finally, in what I believe to be the biggest game of this round of fixtures, the biggest highlight of the upcoming Premier League weekend, it's actually the game that kicks everything off this weekend. It is at the King Power Stadium. It is Leicester taking on Manchester City. Manchester City making the trip to the Midlands to take on Brendan Rodgers' side in what could be a very intriguing battle. We know that obviously Leicester have picked up a couple of good results in recent weeks. They've made it back-to-back wins. They've picked up 3 clean sheets on the bounce, a 4-0 victory in their previous game against Wolves. So things are looking a little bit more positive than what they were many weeks ago for Brendan Rodgers and for Leicester. But obviously Manchester City are in town, and obviously they are looking to try and catch Arsenal up. They got back to winning ways last week with a 3-1 victory over Brighton. I did see some concerning, but I don't know if it was real or not, but it seemed concerning that Erling Haaland might be injured for Manchester City. So it might be a bit of a positive for Leicester going into this one. I don't know whether it was true or not. I don't know whether it was legit or not, but I did hear that maybe that could be the case. Obviously, City should not be Leicester should not be focusing on the City as just a one-man team, of course. They've got many other players that are strong enough, many other players that are very good, obviously, from having spent so much money on that team in all kinds of different areas. But of course, if you've got the guy who has scored a ridiculous amount of goals already so far this season out injured, that is a major boost before a ball is even kicked. If that's the case. If that's not the case, and I'm just and he's actually okay, then obviously it could be a long afternoon for Leicester, because he is back in the mood for goals. He got a couple last week following drawing a blank against Liverpool the previous week. It's going to be very intriguing to find out if he gets on the score sheet again, and it's obviously very likely that he will, because it is Erling Haaland. He already scored 17 goals so far this season. He is phenomenal. But enough about Haaland, let's focus on this game. Leicester, of course, have the players that can hurt Manchester City, particularly on the counter-attack. City have proven this season that they are not impenetrable. They can be got at in certain areas, in the wide areas, but in particular, and even through the middle if they decide to push up high enough that Leicester can spring a very direct counter-attack. Jamie Vardy's pace could be used on the counter-attack. Patson Daka could also be used. It will be interesting to see how Brendan Rodgers decides to approach this game in terms of a counter-attacking aspect, what areas he decides to try and exploit, that kind of thing. But it's all about how he can get his defence to be solid and remain solid throughout the entirety of the 90 minutes to stop the likes of Riyad Mahrez, Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden, obviously Erling Haaland if he's going to be playing, of course, Gundogan, Julian Alvarez, and whoever else that Pep Guardiola has at his disposal that he can use. That is going to be intriguing as well to watch. Could be a very interesting game of football in which I expect City to dominate and Leicester to try and hit them on the counter-attack, as is kind of predictable in these types of games when it comes to Manchester City. But overall, I'm expecting a very intriguing lunchtime encounter between these two come Saturday at 12:30. As far as a prediction goes, look, it's very difficult to look past Man City. Leicester could obviously spring a surprise and get a point from this game. Of course they could. It's never a foregone conclusion, even when it is Manchester City, because of how they've shown their slight vulnerability this season in certain times, in certain moments, and so on and so forth. But City, for me, go on and win this game with or without Erling Haaland, and that is why I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory in favour of Pep Guardiola's side. As I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of all of the games that are coming up in this upcoming round of Premier League fixtures this weekend? And of course, what are your own thoughts, comments, opinions, but most of all, of course, predictions on all of the games that are coming up in this round of Premier League fixtures? That will be very interesting to read down below in the comment section, I'm sure. Also, fantasy football managers, who do you see having a good week? Who do you see having a bad week? Who are you putting into your squads? Who are you taking out of your squads? That could also make the interesting reading as well down below in the comment section. But of course, mostly leave your predictions, because that is obviously what this video is all about. Otherwise, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new, or want to see more content like this. Both things are always and probably greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Premier League prediction show, and I'll see you all again soon in another video.